Welcome to the Communication module for Leadership in a Joint Environment. In this brief module, you will learn vital communication principles, in addition to important tips and processes for effective written and verbal communication.
Newsflash! I got a news flash for you. Start time is 8 a.m. 8 a.m. Let's see. 8:01, 7:55, 7:54, 7:40, 8:01, 7:49, 7:50, 8:02, 8:01, 8:03. In the past month, you've been late a total of 8 minutes. Now, it might be fun for you to get over on the big bad company. You might get your jollies like that, but that doesn't work for me, all right? So I want you to fix this time thing. I want you to fix it. Do you understand? Fix the time thing. Now get out. So I'm walking by your cubicle and I see an unauthorized poster there. It says, "Hang in there, baby." It's got a little kitty cat hanging on a rope. Hang in there, baby. Hang in there. I guess you feel the need to hang in. Your job is so tough. You gotta hang in. I'm hanging in. Let me tell you something. I started at this company on the loading docks 20 years ago, and now I'm here. I didn't have to hang in. I'm here. You disgust me. Go back to your cushy chair and your soft cubicle and hang in there. Get out. Sit. Bottom line, I had to cancel your vacation. My plate is too full. What are you giving me the eyes? You're giving me the eyes, huh? Do you know how busy we are? I should have fired you for not offering. Giving me the eyes. Oh, you got vacation. Get out. Take your eyes and get out of here. Giving me the eyes.
Communication is perhaps the most important of the leadership skills. It is through effective communication and demonstrated ethical decision-making that we develop trust. In the video you just watched, the leader communicated to his team, but did so in a way that was demeaning and ineffective. In the leadership model, trust is the foundation upon which soft values and leadership knowledge are built. Without trust as a solid foundation, our institution cannot succeed. Within that foundation, communication, ethics, and decision-making are essential to the trust upon which we as military professionals rely. In order to succeed at the foundational level, we must know how to communicate. Effective communication is highly valued and utilized by the Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff. Effective communications allow us to execute the Chairman's first desired Joint Leadership Attribute, or JLA, which is to operate on Commander's intent and enable mission command at all levels. You also employ effective communications to anticipate, communicate, and mitigate risks. Ineffective, poor communication also entails significant risk to you, your career, and your superiors and subordinates. With the tips in this module of the leadership lesson, you can avert this risk. In order to operate on Commander's intent and enable mission command at all levels, there must be effective communication both up and down the chain of command. Subordinates need to know the details of whatever the project mission entails. Make sure you share these details with them and communicate the vision. By filling in the details and providing succinct direction, your subordinates will have a higher likelihood of success, which will set you up for success when briefing the chain of command. Communicating with senior leadership is also a crucial leadership skill. This is where we have to strike a balance between available time and details. Your supervisors only need a summary from a broad scope of how you have implemented the orders. Anticipate any questions they may have and be prepared to answer them. Remember, information we provide as senior NCOs should be logically sound and rooted in critical thinking in order to provide greater clarity to our communication. A good example of this is the USSOCOM Commander's posture statement to Congress. This is an executized report going up to the leaders who manage our budget. The key to an executive report is having the details available if asked. Two important effective communication skills are frequency and feedback. Frequent communication is important in establishing trust both up and down the chain of command by keeping everyone informed and up to date from the beginning to the end of the project or mission. Feedback is what keeps things on course and ensures that the initial intent is maintained and realized. The quote by Frank Lloyd Wright, a famous architect, demonstrates the value of effective communication and planning early rather than later. It is best to begin the communication process early and follow up often. Initial communications with your subordinates can be nothing more than just getting to know those whom you work with. As things evolve, endeavor to keep everyone involved in the loop. This can be accomplished a number of ways, from informal stand-up hallway meetings to more formalized briefing and presentation. Regardless of your mode of communication, the key is that all pertinent information is communicated early and often. During the time you are tasking subordinates, it'll become necessary to provide feedback. As a leader, make it a goal to provide 4 positive points of feedback to each corrective bit of feedback. Think of this as 4-to-1 link. As SOF operators, we know that exceeding 1 tracer to every 4 rounds can burn out a barrel. Likewise, exceeding positive feedback with negative feedback can burn out a subordinate. At times, it may be necessary to make several corrective steps in a row without providing positive feedback. As a leader, ensure you follow up as soon as possible to then provide positive feedback based on the corrective steps taking place. This is especially important after formal or written counseling. Now we'll cover 2 important forms of communication, written and verbal, beginning with written. Click Next to continue. Being able to develop and distribute written communication is a vital skill in your respective job. Furthermore, keeping your message succinct yet accurate and thorough is a necessary leadership skill. It's such an important skill to the command that it is included in each of the programs in the Enlisted Academy. Your ability to write effectively in discussion boards, essay, and 5-paragraph format will provide you with the skills to meet the program writing requirements and enhance your professional writing capabilities. There are multiple formatting styles of writing, but in this course we will use APA, or the American Psychological Association format. Templates and resources are available in the Writing Center, where you can gather the tools which will help you become a more efficient and effective writer. By now in your career, you have received some sort of written communications training. The goal of this written communications section is not to repeat all of the things you've learned in countless English and communication classes. Our goal is to give you some simple tips and tricks that you can use to become a more effective communicator. Click on each tab to learn how to avoid some common writing mistakes. As an organizational leader, part of your message is going to have to be delivered via email. This might not have been necessary back in your individual leadership days. However, in the future, it will simply be a reality. Email can be a great communication tool, or it can be a serious career distraction. Most of us know someone who's missed a promotion or ended a career over some form of email nonsense. To help you avoid one of these email mines in the future, we've developed an email minefield for you to learn about common issues and mistakes and how to diffuse them before they become a problem. Click on each one of the mines to read about and diffuse a potential email mine. Diffuse all the mines to move to the next slide. Business only on business email. Resist all temptations to forward inspirational stories, political comments, or those career-killing nude photos or racy videos. As you move out of the tactical and into the organizational echelons, keep in mind the magnifying glass focuses on emails much tighter than at the tactical level. Put the address in last. When drafting an email, don't have the recipients listed until you are ready to send. This will help you to avoid the tragic email accidental discharge. The blind carbon copy, or BCC, must be used appropriately and not subversively. Often, the person who is blind CC'd will respond to the person who was the subject of the email without thinking about the BCC implications. This can lead to a lack of trust or a loss of rapport with the recipient of the email. Blind CC can be used in a mass emailing to keep email addresses private or to keep the distribution list private. Read all your emails and have a plan to respond to them daily. "I forgot," or "somehow it got deleted" are not valid excuses in a professional organization. Always take the positive assumptive approach and ask for clarification if the message seems negative. If someone is wanting to argue with you over email, don't reciprocate ever. Remember that emails or written communication lack the nonverbal cues that we might normally pick up on in a face-to-face conversation, and that this alone can lead to miscommunication. Simply pick up the phone, meet face-to-face, or ask your supervisor for assistance. Sure, you can win an email exchange of angry words, but once that email gets forwarded to the commander in the SEA, there will likely be no winners. Get a second opinion if you're not sure about an email or its content. A second reader can provide a grammar and sanity check before you hit the send button. Simplify your email. Get to the point quickly, be brief, and be polite. Before you hit the send button, read the email and see if you can trim any extra words from the message. Initial emails or initial replies should have your signature block. Each organization will have an SOP on signature blocks, but at a minimum, they should include your name, title, branch, and a phone number where you can be reached. Always keep your chain of command in the CC line when emailing outside of the immediate organization or to higher HQ, even when you are contacted directly by someone from higher HQ. If you don't include your immediate supervisor as a CC in the initial response to higher, your supervisor may end up in the CC line in a subsequent reply, simply out of protocol. This will likely lead to friction. In military writing, we are trained to use active voice. However, when negative information has to be delivered via email, you can avoid the appearance of overt negativity by using passive voice, or the indirect approach when assigning blame. All caps will have its time and place. Negative feedback is not the time to use all caps. When responding to an email, the crucial first step is to ensure you have read and fully understand the intent of the email. Slow down and read for meaning before responding. As a leader, speaking in front of a group will be a reality. Your effectiveness as a public speaker is a powerful way to demonstrate your effectiveness as a leader, but like any activity, becoming a good speaker takes practice. For some, speaking in front of a group can be a terrifying experience, but this too can be mitigated by practice. Likewise, listening to a horrible public speaker might convey negative connotations, not just to the professionalism and character of the speaker, but of the organization they are representing. Click on the videos to see examples of effective and ineffective public speeches.
Okay. Recent polls have shown a fifth of Americans can't locate the U.S. on a world map. Why do you think this is?
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. Or should help South Africa and should help the Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future for our children.
Thank you very much, South Carolina.
Take a look on the parade field, ladies and gentlemen. Take a long, hard look. What you see standing out there is representative of the noblest strata of our society. These new infantrymen and their trainers are America's 21st century Spartans. They are an element of that small segment of our population that guards the national wall of defense. And as arrogant as this will sound, it's what makes them better than the average young man. Not better in a material, snide, or arrogant sort of way, but better as it relates to doing something versus hanging out in a coffee shop, talking and criticizing. Anyone can talk about what should be done in a given moment, but most won't do anything about it. You see it every day in your television screens, all sorts of so-called experts with great-sounding titles and articles that have been published. They're always ready to give advice, but never ready to pick up a rifle, ruck up, and close with the enemy. For my money, there are two kinds of men that walk the earth: men of action and all others. What stands before you What stands before you are men of action. I'm not talking about a random, haphazard sort of action. I'm talking about a deliberate, measured, and when required, intensely focused action. To be sitting in the safety of your home several years into a war, subjected to the 24/7 media coverage of that same war and its brutality, and then to decide to go and sign up for the Army Infantry says an awful lot about a man's character. To stick it out at a time when so many in our society look daily for a reason to quit says a great deal about a man's heart, the support he gets from his family, and his ability to see a larger picture. Anyone can start, but not everyone has the heart to finish. Not one infantryman you see standing before you really wants to go into harm's way and risk it all. But their moral clarity won't allow them to sit back and let someone else provide the blanket of freedom that we here today cherish and so many others take for granted. You're looking at the newest members of that unique band of brotherhood that is the infantry. Today, your young men join that same fraternity as those that stormed the beaches at Normandy, hunted the enemy in the Ashau Valley in Vietnam, parachuted into Panama, beat incredible odds in the streets of Mogadishu, Somalia, and currently subdue our enemies in both Iraq and Afghanistan. When policymakers finish talking, when debate has ceased, when negotiations have failed and orders are given, it becomes the mission of the young men before you to execute national policy. These young men are the substance behind any policy undertaken by this country deemed important enough to send men into harm's way. Absolute proof positive that the United States means business when their boots hit the ground. The reasons for enlisting in the Army are varied and often deeply personal, but it's what makes them truly the best and the brightest that we have in this country. And I'm not saying that to be nice, I say that because I fervently believe it. The best and the brightest are not necessarily on campus or in the corporate boardroom right now. The best and the brightest are you out there on the parade field. Men, don't ever think for 1 minute that the kids running around on some university campus protesting, breaking things, or whining about this, that, and the other have anything on you. You are privileged to have the one advantage that they all covet. You will know. You'll have facts about the goings-on in Iraq, Afghanistan, Djibouti, the Philippines, the Balkans, and many other places. Your head will not be filled with the empty theory of those who in actuality know very little because they lack the intestinal fortitude to commit to anything that requires risk. I'm speaking of the snide, arrogant sort who spend the day blaming America for every wrong in the world before going home to sleep at night under that blanket of freedom provided by better men. Better men just like you. Cool.
Here are 5 tips on public speaking in a soft context that might be of help. Number 1. If speaking in front of a crowd sincerely makes you nervous, prepare yourself for the worst. The worst-case scenario often includes running completely out of breath and simply having to stop and gasp for breath in front of your audience. This usually happens within the first 30 to 90 seconds. When practicing a speech, you may want to try doing 20 push-ups or jumping jacks, then immediately start in with your introduction. Your increased heart rate and respiration will mimic the reaction you may feel in front of a crowd. Learn to breathe and control your anxiety while speaking. This is done by controlling the pace of your speaking. Once you do this, your oxygen deficit will subside. Number 2. Pause before you begin to speak. 5 seconds may be all you need to get your body or heart rate to settle down. Take a second to look at your audience, look at your notes, project your slide, take a deep breath, and then go. Slowly. Number 3. Plan speaking breaks during your speech. One good way to do this is to have something, a small quote, a rhetorical question, an illustration, or a chart for the audience to look at while you simply shut up. A few of these opportunities will help you maintain your composure during the presentation. Number 4. Research, reorganize, and rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. Nothing can be more nerve-wracking than talking to a group of senior officers and enlisted personnel about a subject you don't know much about. Research the material first, taking time to read about the subject and gain some knowledge, at least a couple layers deep. Next, take the information that's been provided to you and try to reorganize it into 3 main points. With these 3 points, you'll also have an introduction and a conclusion. Reorganizing the information on slides will also make this information yours. Finally, rehearse by reading through the main points, then try again while going through with slides, and finally, do a full dress rehearsal in the very room you will be presenting, if possible. Try to enlist the help of a couple of critics during one of your final rehearsals. This will help you with your confidence and will also give you the chance to receive some final feedback. Number 5. Visualize. Now that you know the material, visualize your speech or presentation. Think about controlling your pace, asking questions, pausing for effect, and speaking slowly. Once you can visualize yourself without the nervousness, you can also present without nervousness too. In this video from Toastmasters, a professional speaker discusses speaking anxiety and his strategies to combat his fears.
You know, it is true what they say, that people are so anxious about public speaking that they would rather die than stand up there in front of a whole bunch of people.
85% of Americans report feeling anxious when speaking in front of others, and I think the other 15% are lying, quite frankly. A lot is at risk when you speak, your reputation, your status, your goals, and I think people really feel the intense scrutiny of being under that pressure. The responses our body has to anxiety of speaking are the same responses we have to any type of threat. If somebody jumped out of the bushes with a knife threatening our lives, the same things would happen. Our blood pressure would go up, our heart rate would go up, we would start to sweat, we'd feel butterflies in our stomach. So speaking for many people is that kind of threat.
So the first thing is to accept that this shaking like a leaf is just normal human behavior.
Say, hey, I'm nervous, that makes sense, rather than what many people do when they start to feel nervous is they get anxious about their anxiety, and that just spins them up and it makes it worse.
Pat yourself on the back and say, I'm just normal.
Deep breathing can be amazingly helpful because it slows down those autonomic nervous responses. So by taking deep breaths, you can reduce your blood pressure, your heart rate. It can actually slow down the adrenaline pumping so the shaking can stop. Another thing that's important is to actually just visualize, where you don't actually say the words out loud, but you imagine yourself presenting in the room.
Figure skaters don't learn to do double or triple Lutz jumps just by skating around putting their pick in the ice. They visualize. And when you have successfully visualized that a number of times, then you are coached to go do it.
And that's a great anxiety management technique because it desensitizes you.
When we continually can see it in our third eye, our nervous system begins to respond as if in fact we are doing it. And the next thing is understand who your audience is and that it is not about you, it's about the audience. Because when you can get out of you and into your audience, there's no worry anymore about how do I look. It's not about you. It's about them. So those are the main ingredients. Remember that being nervous is normal. Take a big old deep breath, visualize, and know it's always about the audience. When students are able to master these tips, the nerves are gone, the anxiety is gone, and your audience is in for a wonderful presentation.
Now let's see what you remember about communication in a leadership context. These next few questions are based on the important principles of leadership, written communication, and verbal communication. We begin with important principles of leadership. Written communication is vital as a leader, and you communicate differently to subordinates than you do to leadership. Which of these graphs best depicts the ideal written communication in the chain of command?
Thank you, Mayor and fellow Rachelanians. That electrician must be a Democrat. uh, th Thank you, Mayor and fellow Rachelanians. I'm proud to be here today.
Attaboy, Luther!
When I was asked to be guest speaker at this luncheon, I asked myself this: who are you, Luther Higgs, to be a guest speaker at this luncheon? I thought about my answer about being a guest speaker for a long time. Well, what is a guest speaker? Let me clarify this. I have been called brave. What is brave? Let me clarify this. Of course, we all know that it is short for bravery. That goes without even being said. But it is also a symbol of another thing. It is a symbol of doing one's duty no matter what is scaring him personally. Attaboy, Luther! Take your World War II. There were many heroes in World War II. What were your heroes? Who were your heroes? Let me clarify this. Thank you for having me.
Great job! You've covered important communication principles, like communicating up and down the chain of command and providing feedback. You've also discussed writing papers and emails, both vital aspects of written communication. Finally, you learned about verbal communication, particularly public speaking.